Hello everyone, my name is Elliot Giltz and today I have a very special video for you. Today I am going to be talking about my top 5 SCPs of all time. Now if you are unfamiliar with SCP, if you've never seen it before or heard of it, I'm going to explain what the basics are, like what this setting is and what the wiki is. And then I'm going to get into why I think these 5 are some of the best. So, if you've never heard of or read about SCP before, it is a sort of community project where a whole bunch of people come together to write stories all loosely set in the same setting, where an organization called the SCP Foundation sort of acts like the Men in Black organization. They go out and they find supernatural or anomalous things and lock them away for the sake of protecting humanity. Now, their exact motives, that what I just said is almost entirely universal, but how good of a thing that is or how bad of a thing that is can vary with telling to telling and story to story. It is entirely community sourced and funded. So if you wanted to, you could go and write an SCP. You could go make an account on the SCP wiki, write something up, submit it, and if the administrators of the site like it, it will be added to canon. It's that simple. And thousands and thousands of SCPs, which individual SCPs are the things held by the SCP Foundation. Thousands and thousands have been written, divided into series. So, first series, second series. Each series is 1,000 SCPs, and there are, I believe, 9 series at the time of this recording. So, there's quite a few. And I'm going to talk about the 5 I like the most, that I think break the mold the most, and I think are the most interesting. Obviously, that is highly subjective, and other people will have top 5 lists that wildly deviate from this. I think that's entirely fair. I put these on my list for very specific reasons, which I'll get to with each of them. But that is what the SCP Wiki is, if you've never heard of it before. And starting from the bottom, this is why these 5 are my favorites. So starting with number 6369, which every SCP is numbered in its order of admission. So number 6369 is the 6,369th to be added to the site. And I'm going to address it now. That can sound pretty daunting. You're telling me there's over 6,000 others, over 9,000 others to sort through, and the only thing to identify them would be these numbers? That can sound challenging. That can sound like a lot to sort through and deal with. There are tools and services that both as a part of the site and fans have made to help you sort through and search for things written by specific authors, search for things with specific tags and whatnot as you would with other sites, and it makes it a whole lot easier to find things relevant to what you would be interested in. So when you hear me throw around these huge ass numbers and you think about how many SCPs there are, it can sound daunting if you haven't gotten into it before, but it's a whole lot easier to get through and get into than it would seem. So, with that out of the way, starting for realsies this time with 6369, the Finder Mice. 6369 is a service that is contacted through a single phone, calling the only number it can call, and calling this number will connect you to a service that will send mice to help you find something you've lost, like your keys, your wallet, your favorite mug, whatever. These mice will show up in a timely manner, and they will search the area to help you find this thing. And at the end of their service, once they found the thing and brought it back to you, you're expected to pay them either in currency, which it's adorable, they get paid like a penny per head, or you pay them in food, which the food has to be safe for mice to eat. And this is adorable. If you pay them in food, it has to be able to be evenly distributed amongst the mice that showed up to help you. That, the fact that they're 100% fair in their pay, that's adorable to me. And the only rules to the mice are, 1, you have to pay them in the aforementioned ways. 2, the thing has to be lost. It can't, you hid them, or rather you hid it for them to find. It has to be genuinely lost to you. And 3, there cannot be any sort of predator animals like snakes or cats in the area. As long as your request for service meets those conditions, the mice will show up and help you find the thing you lost. And that's all there is to it. And I added them to the list because 1, they're adorable. And 2, a lot of people have this image of SCP where it's all murderous monsters and galaxy threatening level stories. And that's not it at all. Sometimes it's just a quirky little thing that isn't even threatening. It's just anomalous enough that the SCP Foundation doesn't want it in the average person's hands because it would break the veil of normalcy most people have. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It's adorable, and it's cute, and it's a safe SCP. SCPs are divided into classes that determine, or denote rather, that denote their level of threat. So a safe SCP like this is obviously safe, as long as you're not actively antagonistic to it. By and large, it poses no threat to anybody. There are then Euclid SCPs, the next rank up, that may need some special containment procedures or other routines to keep them from hurting anybody, but otherwise they're not actively trying to be a threat. And then the third rank is Keter, which is this thing is actively a threat, and we need to actively contain it, otherwise it will be a threat to people. Most people associate the SCP Wiki with all the Keter class SCPs, but as we see with the Finder Mice, that's not the case. Safe SCPs and Euclid SCPs can also be interesting, cute little stories. And that's why they're on the list, to break that notion. Moving on to number 4, we have 231. Ping-ponging from the adorable little mice that help you find your wallet, we have the Montauk Girl. So, just to get it out of the way, canon in the SCP Foundation is very loose. It isn't a hard set in stone canon like you would see with a conventional narrative. With all of the people contributing to it, there are a number of different canons, and each individual SCP and each individual story can be added to your personal interpretation or axed from your personal interpretation, and that is equally as valid as anyone else's. So if you see something that has graphic content, you can disregard that if that's not your thing and go, I don't like that. And that interpretation of SCP is perfectly valid. So, getting into what 231 is, there's a figure in a lot of these stories called the Scarlet King, which is an extra dimensional god entity that feeds off of fear and hate and all the nastiness of the world. And a cult dedicated to him underwent this ritual where they impregnated 7 girls with entities that are considered his sons, in air quotes. And the SCP Foundation intervened and failed to stop 6 of these entities from being born, which are other SCPs listed on the site, which you can go check out. But the 7th they managed to stop, which was supposedly going to be the worst. And the girl pregnant with this entity is the girl that is the focus of 231. Now, the reason she's so infamous amongst the fandom is there's a procedure called 110 Montauk, which has to be done to her to keep her from birthing her extra-dimensional progeny. And all throughout the SCP Foundation, it is infamous as one of the most horrible things the Foundation does to keep the world safe. Now, keep in mind, this is the 231st SCP to be introduced to the site. So this was back in the day when you could reasonably start at the beginning and just mow through them in a single setting and reasonably make good distance through the total number of SCPs on the site. So you would read about other SCPs that have awful, awful things done to contain them, like sacrificing D-class personnel, the disposable convicted felons and whatnot that get donated to the Foundation for the purposes of sacrificing for testing and whatnot. You would read about those people being horribly tortured or murdered by SCPs, and the Foundation feeds them to contain them. And then you get to 231, and it's like, this is so awful that the Foundation doesn't even let you know about it. And most people treat it as like this boogeyman operation that they do. And that framing is important to understanding what makes 231 so biting in terms of its tension and its horror. So, if you open up the 231 article, you will get everything I just told you, and then you get the POV of someone assigned to 110 Montauk, and we find out what it is. Now, like I said, canon can be fluid and changed at will. A lot of people will go, nah, I don't like this, and make it something a little more straightforward, like you would expect, for the sake of more overt horror to the setting. And that's, like I said, perfectly valid. But the most commonly accepted version of 110 Montauk is you go into the girl's holding cell, which has a bed, a dresser, all the amenities to make living there comfortable, and you spend time with her and talk with her and socialize with her and make her dinner and feed her and read her a bedtime story and give her a kiss on the forehead goodnight. And that's what 110 Montauk is. And with all the tension built, that sounds weird. However, you have to remember the creature that she is pregnant with is a creature born from the Scarlet King who feeds off of fear. And as long as the girl is comfortable and not fearful or anything, her passenger I was digging for a soft word to use. Her passenger is deprived of power and cannot come into the world. As long as she's not fearful, it is too weak to come forth, and the final step of the ritual is held off. Now, that begs the question, why the secrecy? Why the lying? Why this mystique throughout the Foundation that 110 Montauk is so awful? You have to remember that the Scarlet King is also at play. And just keeping one little girl happy isn't going to rob him of enough power to stop him from coming into the world. However, as long as he's being sated with all of the fear generated by 110 Montauk, he is at least content enough to not press into the material world as much. Whereas if this masquerade were broken and everyone knew 110 Montauk was something nice done to the girl, the Scarlet King, desperate for more fuel, may be more active in trying to conjure fear in the world and get people afraid of him. And to keep that activity on the DL, the Foundation keeps him sated with the rumors of 110 Montauk. So 231 is on the list because that is a lovely little story. It showed up very early in canon, very early in the wiki's life cycle. So for having so little of a basis to work with, that's a very creative story. And also, I like that it shows the SCP wiki isn't like the first one, isn't just murder monsters. It is a murder monster. It's about murderous monsters, but they're used as a component in the story in a very creative way. It's not just they're there and scary, bah, they kill ya. It's about this little girl and all of the kerfuffle going on around her, done by the Foundation to play multiple hands at once and keep multiple entities at bay. And I think that's very interesting. I think it uses those elements much better than a lot of people give the SCP Wiki credit for, and that's why it's on the list. Next up, we have number 7376. Now, 7376 is a retelling of earlier canon. It is about the original number 73 and the original number 76, Cain and Abel, the biblical figures rendered in SCP fiction. 7376 is a retelling of them incorporating the Mechanites and the Sarkics, two groups of interest that have been built up over time and made much more fleshed out with more tellings over the years. As you can tell by their numbers, the original 73 and original 76 were a part of the first series, whereas this number is significantly bigger. And it's on the list because it takes those original figures, Cain and Abel, and it incorporates all of the lore related to the Mechanites and the Sarkics since then into their stories in this retelling. And I'm not going to say any more on it because I think it's very interesting and I want you to go read it for yourself. Out of everything on here, that's the one I'm not going to flesh out fully so that you can have the experience of going and reading 7376 on your own. I'm just going to say that it is outstanding what the author did with it taking figures from the very beginning of the site's founding and dragging them forward with all of the lore built up by other authors in that space to make a fresh story that is very compelling and emotionally captivating. I highly encourage you, go read 7376. Moving on to number 2, we have 3515 Unearth. This is an anomalous painting that if you fall asleep near it, you will be teleported to an alternate dimension where you are inside a replica of your childhood home, whatever you register as the home of your childhood, that's where you are, and it is totally encased in earth. It is infinite earth in all directions. And you're just dead. It will have food and whatnot in the fridge, but that will only last you so long. And if you try to tunnel through the earth to get out, you will inevitably create a cave-in, which will crush you to death. So you either get crushed to death trying to tunnel through the infinite earth, or you starve to death inside whatever your childhood home is. Of note in this is, as you tunnel through the earth, you will encounter two things. You will encounter the roots of some kind of tree, and you will encounter skeletons dressed in whatever clothes you were wearing when you got teleported to the alternate dimension. And those are your body in the imminent future where you will die, because there's no escape from this. And that's all there is to it. That it's just this awful cursed thing that for some reason anomalous I'm going to leave that in because I deserve to have my shame known. It's just this cursed thing that anomalously, bingo, just consigns you to death in one of the most awful ways. And why does it do this? What is this alternate dimension? What are these roots growing through the infinite earth? Why do you find future copies of your dead body? Why your childhood home? Why is it related to this fucking painting? All of that is not known. And it's never going to be known. And I added 3515 to the list for two reasons. One, a lot of authors, in horror in general, just love giving away the answer. Because I feel it, man. Like, I feel this. I'm a writer too. I feel it. When you come up with clever shit, you want to talk about it. You want to explain it because you want to share what you made. But the captivating part of horror is the mystery, that which is unseen. And going through the SCP Wiki, you'll find plenty of authors that wrote something horrifying and then gave you every answer about it. But you will also find stories like this that leave so much unsaid and leave so many mysteries to leave you wanting answers you will never get. The exact nature and why this is the way it is, it's just not known. And it's just this thing that is awful, and it just is here. And that's all there is to it. And this is why the SCP Foundation does what it does, to protect people from this shit. Now, this is a good point to bring this up. You might wonder, why doesn't the SCP Foundation destroy some of this shit? Especially when it's an awful cursed painting that throws you in a dirt dimension. And the reason for that is twofold. One, their hope is to eventually unravel all those mysteries, because that knowledge could be helpful down the line in dealing with other anomalies. And two, as we'll see, sometimes trying to destroy an SCP carries unforeseen consequences. And that carries us to number 1. This is 2 SCPs that, so I cheated, I'm sorry, but you saw it the whole time, so technically it's not a lie. This is 2 SCPs that I feel deserve to be told in conjunction with each other. So we have number 5031. 5031 is a creature that is invisible, and as far as the SCP Foundation knows, its anatomy consists of a bipedal frame, of a reptilian body, kind of like a raptor. It has 2 legs, a thick torso, little arms, a carnivorous head, and then it has a long tail that ends in a sort of bladed appendage. And when 5031 was first found, the researcher that found him just chucked him in a blank cell, locked the door, and left him to it. And as you can expect, being left in a blank room with no stimuli other than just enough food to keep you alive, it has some unhealthy consequences. And 5031, for the entirety of its captivity, was highly hostile and aggressive. However, one day a new researcher was made in charge of 5031 and decided, hey, this is kind of inhumane. This is kind of fucked up what we're doing, but let's change this. And he started to introduce stimuli and furniture for 5031 to climb on and play on, and toys and whatnot for it to play with. They introduced a greater diversity of food to its diet. They introduced things it could interact with and play with. And as it turns out, 5031 is significantly more sapient and intelligent than the original researchers gave it credit for. This process of giving 5031 more to work with and more to play with and interacting with it made it so docile and friendly that researchers could go in. And whereas before, if anyone went into its cell, it would murderize them. Now it's so happy and not insane from being left alone in a blank room that they can interact with it and be friendly with it. This further escalates to the point that 5031 demonstrates intelligence. They give it a machine that it can press buttons to communicate with them by making noises through the machine. It escalates to the point that 5031 demonstrates an aptitude for cooking. They give it different ingredients and foodstuffs to play with. And 5031 will mess with it and try different combinations until it finds something that works. This horrible murder lizard has a hobby. And the article for 5031 ends with the staff of the site that contains it love it, not only because it's so friendly, but also because it cooks meals for the staff out of gratitude for them making its life so much better in containment. And that story of a entity that is given cruelty and hardship based on its initial appearance, only to then be shown kindness by someone else looking past that, and that working out better for everybody, is carried through in 1609, the chair, the very famous chair. Everyone knows what the chair is, but in case you don't, there is another organization contingent to the Foundation called the GOC, the Global Occult Coalition. And the GOC is much more gung-ho and guns blazing, and much more about destroying the anomalous, whereas the Foundation is all about containing it and learning from it. The GOC encountered this chair that was possessed, I believe just by like a straight up ghost, that would detect when someone around it wanted to sit down, be it their legs are tired or whatever. And the entity would teleport the chair behind them to provide them a place to sit. A perfectly innocuous, non-threatening, non-hostile anomaly. The GOC threw it in a wood chipper. Fucking assholes, right? The GOC, in their gung-ho, destroy all anomalies attitude, threw the chair in a wood chipper, hoping to destroy it. And they failed. They failed spectacularly, because this caused the entity in the chair a great deal of pain. And it decided it didn't want to be nice anymore. It wanted to murder people, because they tried to murder it. Rendered down to little wood chips and nails, the entity, now in the vicinity of anybody, teleports the pieces of the chair into their lungs to murder them. Congratulations, GOC, you made a murder chair. The Foundation stepped in and, through negotiation and diplomacy, managed to talk the entity down to being at least passively neutral and not actively murdering. The Foundation, at most of their sites, maintains an area meant to be for the staff to unwind and de-stress. Because, as you can imagine, dealing with this shit can be very stressful. And as a part of the site 1609 was kept in, they made this little garden area with a fountain and a flower bed, and made 1609 into the mulch for the flower bed to sustain it. And as a part of this containment, staff would come around and hang out and talk to the entity, and the entity could help them work through their issues and talk about what troubles them in their work for the Foundation, or even like their personal lives and shit. It kind of served as an on-site therapist. And despite what the GOC did to it, the chair got a new life, going back to its original goal of helping people in a way that it never could have dreamed of. It is still very hostile to the GOC. The Foundation has to be very careful not to let any personnel that are former GOC that defected to the Foundation get around the remnants of the chair, because it will just know and try to murderize them. And honestly, can't blame it. But between these two, you have a very beautiful story being told. You have a story of an entity that is given cruelty and hate in the case of the GOC, and is horribly, horribly hurt by it. And then you have someone else coming in, and despite that hate and cruelty, having twisted that entity into something monstrous, this person looks at them and goes, hey, you're deserving of kindness. You're deserving of love and all of the basic decency anyone should expect. And through that gesture of kindness, these entities are given a new life where not only is their suffering put to an end, but they can make a new life for themselves where they help other people and enrich their lives. And that's fucking beautiful, man. Like, this is my third take recording this. And, like, the first and second times, I was fighting really hard not to choke up talking about this. Because, that's so touching. Like, I'm such a sucker for any narrative where the big message is love and compassion and kindness are more powerful than cruelty and hate. And no matter what you are, if you're a sword raptor or a murdered teleporty pile of wood, kindness can still reach you. You still deserve it. And through kindness, a new life where you make the world better is possible. That's fucking beautiful, man. And that's why these two are at number one of my list. Beautiful, touching narratives are possible through the SCP Wiki, and in some cases are only possible through the SCP Wiki, through the format of an SCP article and the setting of the Foundation and whatnot. Stories like this are possible, and they're touching and they're beautiful in such a spectacular way. And that's why these are at the top of my list. So, these are my five. These are my five examples of what the SCP Wiki is capable of. These stories can be well written and touching and heartrending and tragic and scary at the same time. But that's part of fiction, and that's part of the human experience. I love storytelling. It's why I'm a writer. It's why I made this channel to talk about it. And I think the most beautiful part of storytelling is the expression of the human experience. And that's all the good and all the bad, all the beautiful things and all the scary things at once. And what touches me about the SCP Wiki is all of that is in there. Is there in the wiki, and it might take a little work to find. You might have to sort through some articles that are someone's first foray into writing fiction, and they stumble. We all stumble when we first start out. But there are some beautiful stories in there. There are some heartrending stories in there. There are some horrifying stories in there. And they are all worthwhile, and they are all a part of being human, and they're all beautiful. And if anything, I hope, if you've never heard of the SCP Wiki before, I hope this video convinces you that's worth your time, because in my opinion, it very much is. My name is Elliot Geltz, and thank you for spending the last half an hour of your day listening to me talk about this thing I love so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Like, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I hope you have a good day. I'll see you later.